Nebenstimmen. A podcast by Ensemble Modern. Nebenstimmen brings you conversations on music, art and life between ensemble members and conversation partners chosen by them. Find out what the musicians are working on at the moment and what their personal thoughts are.
Hi Jan, I never did a podcast before. I'm very curious and slightly excited and nervously.
Sava, thank you for inviting me to your podcast, your very first podcast.
Yes, that was decided by our meeting. They asked me, and of course I love to speak with you about music and those things. It shouldn't be that difficult,
no.
I guess. Shall we speak firstly, shortly about our concert tonight?
Let's do that. With these hands.
With these hands, our piece actually.
Our piece that we have written together. That started as an idea, because we have played actually some years together now.
It is already.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
So it was, for me, it was a fun. It's been an interesting and very fun experience actually, because the way that this piece, let's call it a piece, because it is, how it came together. I had some ideas that I wanted to try out. And ideas are always very different than what is the end result. But good ideas is always nice to come back to. And when we first met at the ensemble's place in Frankfurt, then we tried out a few of these ideas. And what happened next was that we kind of left these ideas, because what happened was that we created a mutual language where we could improvise together and improvise in a way that is not jazz, but it's more like you are using the colors that the colors that and techniques that are from contemporary classical music, and you are using these type of rhythms, metrical beats or non-metrical beats, or these different type of textures, or the timbre. So you're using the things that you already know, but we have created this type of language where we could improvise together with these different elements. And for me, this is very exciting.
Maybe just for the listeners, we can explain it. At the very beginning we met and we start to improvise without any thoughts before that. We just started, we made a recording, and then we were listening to all of the recordings together, discussing what sounds nice and what not. And you were building in that time already ideas, how to make it like a piece.
Yes, and this was also the next time we played. We played right before the lockdown.
Yes, it was.
That was in Frankfurt.
Exactly.
It was
the
just
checkpoint concert.
Yeah, it was just a few days before everything, the whole world closed down, and like wherever everybody experienced. What happened the next time we were to play together? That was together with the Dresden Frankfurt dance company, Jacopo Godani. We were planning this piece that we would work together with Godani with the dancers, and in advance of that we planned to rehearse together. Now this was also in the middle of COVID. And things happened that prevented me from traveling. But this was so interesting because we managed to do, together with your fantastic engineer, we made a recording where you were based in Frankfurt, and I was in my studio.
And you could use the material afterwards.
Yes, I could use the material that I think I made like 25 different notes. That one of these notes would be a title, a title that would be a 3-minute recording. And then over a period of 24 hours, I was working with these recordings that we did, and I did my, cuttings and pasting and overdubs and stuff, and I sent it to you. So this was meant as a rehearsal, but in the end, they became pieces.
Yeah, you don't want to throw them away now.
No, I've fallen in love with them actually.
Yes, I mean you already mentioned it a little bit about that. It's a bit different to play with musicians which are coming out of different corner than you usually do. So you mentioned it that you work with different structures, but tell me more about it. How you feel with this? Because we are not completely at home at the improvisation world and not coming from the jazz. It is a different language and situation.
Well, I think that it must be very good to throw away scores and not have everything written, because at least in my tradition, because I don't read, then I constantly compose pieces with a lot of different projects and producing records and stuff, but I feel very much at home with improvising, and also I feel at home with the sounds from the contemporary classical world. Over years, I've secretly been using sounds and samples from that type of material. I was in Tokyo performing the Toru Takemitsu piece with the Gagaku Orchestra, and met also the daughter of Toru Takemitsu there, who gave me permission to sample from his material, which was fantastic. But of course, the tradition that you are in is so rich, that where you come from, I think it's so rich with the sounds from a lot of composers that you have been working with is for me very inspiring. The way that you as the Ensemble Modern, the way that your timing for me is really, really good. It's not the electronic or rock world or pop world or the jazz world type of timing. It's a different type of timing, but it's very precise. And for me, this is at the core actually, because without timing, you can't go anywhere. I mean, and timing for me is to be precise, not the sort of the metrical timing.
Very interesting. For my personal side, playing with you anyways have been a dream, because I've been listening to recordings of you since much longer before I knew you. But it is such a fantastic feeling actually, because you can be free. You can just use the voice you want, you have, and you can sound like you want actually, and be yourself. Yeah. And that is not that easy to have it with the classical music. I mean, but you still should be yourself performing a classical music or contemporary, and to find that point is not so easy actually.
Well, I thank you for saying that. I really enjoy being free, because this is also what I feel, that I feel freedom in what I do, and that also it has to do with different things. One thing is that I feel very safe on stage when I improvise. this is it's almost like a muscle that you train, so that you train yourself to be free, and this is also a safe condition. Now, playing with you, I think one of my roles is also to make you feel safe.
And I can tell you that is definitely like that. You can get quite a lot out of us. And it's nice. And very often when we play actually together, I don't only have the feeling that I'm playing my instrument, but somehow I have the feeling that I trigger you as well, in a way. It's very interesting. It's like, because it very often happens exactly that is coming out from you. What I think it will come anyway, and that makes much easier to take the next step then.
Yes. What is happening in sort of, if we should explain to the listener, what is happening when we are playing is that I have access to all your different instruments. So I could sample out bits and pieces of what you do and transform that, and to make it into something new, and then steer the improvisation into certain things. That could be different type of sounds from your trumpet, or it could be Eva's cello, or Dietmar's flute, or Sar's horn, or Jagdish violin, and really, what I think is essential to the way that the language that we have created together is that it's just as much about listening as playing. So it's really about listening to what it actually is happening, and how could you fit into that. So if you are saying what, let's take the example of that you just mentioned, that you are playing something on your trumpet and I grab that and then do something about it. So the two of us have a conversation on stage.
Exactly. Yeah.
So and probably the one of the reasons that I still have been working with live sampling since the mid-90s is that people enjoy playing with themselves. So that it's something familiar. When you hear your own sound transformed into something else, it is something familiar for you. So you could actually immediately respond to it. It's not something that is totally different from the way that you are playing.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, a lot. Well, actually, maybe would be nice if you can explain a little bit what exactly you do. I mean, the listeners, if they saw you, you just have a table which is full of cables. I have no idea how can you manage to put the cables in the same order every time. And there is a computer and a lot of buttons. So maybe you can explain a little bit what exactly is your function and how you do music.
In around 1997, I found a way to bring my studio on stage. I had just got a sampler from Akai that they wanted me to test out, and first I tried it out on records. I would sample from records, and I would use that into different recordings that I was working on, different productions. Well, then I bumped into a jazz musician in Norway called Bugge Wesseltoft. And Bugge, I had just done a remix for him, and he wanted to make a band where he would like to involve electronic musicians. So he asked me if I could be involved. And then the next question that he had was, so what can you do in a live situation? And then I thought, what if I use this sampler? Instead of sampling records, I could sample your musicians on stage. A very simple idea. And he said okay, and we tried it out. And immediately when I sampled the first musician on stage during a concert, the first concert, I knew that this is a new path. So I never went back to the studio. I just continued live, and I traveled for many years, meeting a lot of fantastic musicians all over the world. And I've been doing it ever since, actually.
Do you still have exactly that instrument?
I do. But of course, I mean, I wear them out. So this is probably my 10th or 11th of the
but
same.
It's exactly the same machine.
Yes, it is.
It's the very first one.
Yes, and of course there's some modifications. I run through Ableton and all these things that is very common these days. But I must say that I still find live sampling. This is what we called it. We called it live sampling, and I still find that way of working, that type of discipline, as cutting edge. This is something that is still very vital, and I think that this is also what I try to teach my students at the university where I teach, is to improvise with electronics, because like in an orchestra. Or in classical music, it's people are very in electronic music. People are working more like composers. They are sitting at home and they are working in their bedrooms, and they are creating this material in a very secure environment.
Yes.
So what I try to have them to do is to invite them out in a situation where their blood runs faster through their bodies. So there is a chance in it. The chance for failure is there. And when they realize that they could sample musicians on stage, and then they could work with their own techniques, it's a shock to them. They see that, oh, it's like a revelation. At least some of my students, not all.
So they start to perform with the electronics.
Yes. So not just playing, playing a button and then press play and then everything is running like the train is running. You can't stop a train. But with the live sampling, it's different.
It very often with the electronics, it can get quite problematic. It is involved with so many cables and all those buttons.
Yes, I mean
it's not so simple. Huh?
The cables is one thing. That's the thing that has to do with order. Now we're in Germany, and order is very much a German thing. It's important, but I think that the thing that can become problematic with electronics in a live situation is that everything is predetermined. So it doesn't really matter if you play or not. If you are playing on top with an orchestra, if you are playing on top of somebody who has made something electronically, it plays from start to begin to.
It cannot react.
It cannot react.
Well, they have some patches and stuff which are reacting to particular sounds.
Yes, and this is beautiful. Yeah. So this is also what I find interesting is the possibility of stopping. You are doing something, a movement, and you are stopping it because your senses tells you that I should stop now because the trumpet or the cello is doing something interesting. So instead of just letting my stuff play, it's much more interesting for me to stop and then to see that, oh, this is a new room. This is something completely different. We are changing the perspective here. I have to follow, or I would be, in the past. So also maybe the concept of time is interesting for me here.
Yeah. But it's, as you tell, it's very important to listen. It's exactly that in any kind of music, actually. It's the most important thing is to go to the sides as well, not just in front with your instrument. Maybe also we can speak a little bit about how everything started, actually. I mentioned it, that I have been listening to music of you, and maybe after some concert we shortly met, and I've been thinking the last days to figure it out how it was exactly, but it does have been quite a long time ago now.
It has. And maybe the first time was when we played with Sitzel and Dresden with the Ensemble Modern. So you played a concert, and Eric Honoré, my fellow Punkt co-artistic director, and the Norwegian singer Sissel and Dresden, we did a live remix of Ensemble Modern.
Of our concert, yeah.
So maybe that was the first time, and this is many, many years ago.
It was
2010 maybe.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. Probably it's not that difficult to find it out with Google. And but I remember that we were at the concert which you made after our with the remixes of us, and we were together with Sissel Anderson, and we were quite how to say, I don't know the word in English, it doesn't come to my mind, but we were jealous actually that we wanted to do it together with you, the remix. So, and since then we actually started to speak about it, and
that's right.
Eventually we had the checkpoint. Then
yes, and also we did a trio concert, yourself, me, and Ferrari.
Yes, exactly.
At the Enjoy Jazz. So Rainer Kern of Enjoy Jazz has also been involved in this, but I think that it's yourself that has invited me into the project, Sava, and I really appreciate that, because things take time.
Yes, and dreams comes true. So
yes.
Very nice. You mentioned it before a little bit about Sissel Anderson, and it would be quite nice actually to have a talk about all those wonderful Norwegian musicians. I mean, I have quite a lot of CDs, so I find that the whole music scene extremely interesting there. What is quite special for me is that there is not borders here. Folks musician there, the jazz musician there, classical musician. You somehow created an atmosphere there where people are mixing quite a lot. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about this. Yes. I don't know if you see it like that, but yes. This is what I've been seeing from outside.
I think this is true, and I've been a lot of people say that about Norwegian music and musicians, and I've been trying to figure out what are the reasons for this. And I think it has to do with several things. I think it has to do with freedom. Freedom is essential here, and the freedom to create and not think about results. So it's more the process. Norwegian musicians in a broad field, let's say that includes electronic music, jazz, improvised music, different things. They have a lot of freedom, I think, because there is no record company saying that you should do it this way or that. So one of the things is economics. We have support from the government, which means that when you compose, you could apply for composing, you could apply for touring, you could apply for promoting your recordings. And this system has been going on for many, many years. People seldom talk about it because maybe sort of the idea that the artist is like Duchamp said, a god. But the thing is that these things are interwoven. They react to each other. So there's a freedom in the organizing of things, and also with the tradition. I believe that the first ECM scene in late 60s and early 70s with Manfred traveling to and involving Norwegian musicians has been very much important. And the essential people there are Jon Christensen, the drummer, and Jan Gabarek, of course, and Terje Rypdal and these people. And the freedom of the way that Jon was playing, he said that music is just a sound here and a sound there. That's music for him. He was a wonderful musician that made such a huge impact on other Norwegian musicians like Nils Petter Molvær with Sissel Endresen, Audun Kleive. Generations of musicians that comes from this tradition. And if you go further back, you would see some of the same things also with writers. There's a long tradition of you could go back to Hamsun or to Ibsen or whatever. There is a tradition for this thing to look at very specific things, a specific idea, and then to broaden that. It's like you're looking through the looking glass, and you see that, this tiny little field, let's explore that. So Norwegian musicians are very much different from Swedish musicians and Danish musicians, I think.
But you also do quite a lot of collaboration with them as well, or is not as much?
I don't think it's that much. I mean, there are of course wonderful players, Anders Jomin and Marilyn Masur and a lot of these people, but I think, like you mentioned, that maybe here it's more divided, and you would feel, I would sense that it's more divided like that also in Sweden.
Okay,
yes,
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I played one project with Oslo Sinfonietta, and I mean that was incredible because it was a contemporary piece. But there was this special Norwegian flute player playing, and I played cornetto. It was completely mixed, everything. It was a fantastic experience, actually. And the people are taking someone, like, you feel at home immediately.
Maybe it has to do with certain individuals opening up for freedom. Yeah. And that idea is being passed on to future generations. This is the way to form culture. This is the way culture is formed, isn't it?
Yes.
Certain ideas and things. So I really appreciate the community feeling within Norwegian musicians, and also, of course, not only to play with Norwegian musicians, for God's sake, but to travel and to meet other musicians that comes from different cultures, and see if it's possible to make some beautiful things. I love this.
We came to your festival, and it was fantastic to see all those Norwegian guys there, and they were telling, Jan is so happy to play with you, and you have groups with them, and they're only happy for you. I don't think that is the normal situation in all little groups. I mean, even, for instance, I'm a trumpet player of Ensemble Modern, and if I get invited to play with another contemporary group, it is a little bit difficult for some people.
I understand, but the thing is that people support each other, They play. We play on each other's albums, recordings and stuff. And it also has to do with. I mean, Germany is a huge country. Norway is a tiny little country.
You have to hold together.
Yes. So you're bumped to. You are sort of destined to bump into each other. On the streets, and so you would have some funny mixtures of let's say somebody working with death metal, then working with a free improviser, and maybe some classical musicians involved. These impossible meetings that happens in Norway, and it's the most natural thing.
Yes, exactly. It mostly works, so it's like there must be a lot of failure as well, but
yes,
that's important.
Yeah. Beckett, dare to fail better.
Nice. Probably, I mean, it's a bit cheesy maybe, but I don't know how many of our listeners are into the Norwegian music, and I can imagine that some of them will be happy to have some recommendations what to listen to from, I mean,
I
should.
I could advertise.
Yeah, we can make some lists.
Ladies and gentlemen, please go out and buy the latest album from Odin Kleve, fantastic Norwegian free drummer. There are some really fantastic records made by some new, very young people. So I think we're in sort of a golden age of young, very talented musicians. Anja Laudal is one that comes to my mind. There's a beautiful, fantastic Norwegian drummer called Veslemøy Narvesen, who appears in every kind of combination of musicians. And of course, you have more established musicians like Helge Steen that you have been playing with.
Yes,
isn't he fantastic?
Fantastic.
I mean, his aesthetics as even just he does production. He's an artist himself. He's a composer. He's a performer with super silent and a mastering engineer. And probably my favorite mastering engineer.
You told me that he's fantastic with this.
And of course Arve Henriksen.
I mean, yes, I've been listening to his music a lot and the sounds, and I feel very related to him actually in a way.
Yeah, and there is a relation. There is a relationship between the two of you. Not only that both of you are trumpet players, but there's something in the sound, and probably also the Bulgarian tradition that you bring with you is not so far from the Norwegian tradition. When Arve is on his trumpet, he's playing this type of seljeflute, but he's playing it with his trumpet, maybe without the mouthpiece. That has some of the same flavors and colors as in Bulgarian music.
Some of the ornamentic is
yes, and also the tunings. So you would have these micro tunings into it that I find really there's a relationship there. I had the same experience when I recorded with Tigran Hamasyan, the piano player. That the Armenian tradition, especially when you hear it on the piano, is reminiscent of the Norwegian culture. You could compare it to some of the folk music adaptations of Edvard Grieg. Some of these Norwegian slot music, that the ornaments and all these things is very much similar. But music travels. Music is a passport.
Yeah. Actually, if you look at some of the ornamentic in the Bulgarian folk music, it's not that far from the Baroque classical concertos.
Yeah.
They probably have been listening also in older times, so the classical music as well. I have a friend who is a very, very good folk musician. He's telling that the rhythms, it would take some while to learn them. The scales, you can learn them, it's okay. The ornamentic, you need the whole life. It's quite essential for that kind of music. Actually.
You played me a beautiful recording of the singer with her daughters.
Yes, Nelly Andreeva. Yeah.
Fantastic. And this is also, I think, is to remind ourselves that good music travels. It doesn't really have any borders, and I think it's it's nice to think of these things in the times that we are living in now. It's so problematic.
Yeah, the whole pandemic, whatever.
Yes, and the whole political situation also that is happening now. It's so who knows what the future will bring? Would it be possible to travel, to play music together? Is that a thing that, also because of many reasons, also because of environmental things, and what will happen in technology? Would it be possible for us to do a thing like we are doing, but I'm based in
to be live,
and will the latency of the internet and recordings be less in the future? So it would be possible to sort of have the feeling that we play in the same room.
This is actually we work with some company which are very much working into it of live playing together from distance through internet, and as I understood, there so far that the feeling is already like if you are 10 meters apart. That's not that big latency, or what you call it?
Yes, latency. I think this isn't that fantastic?
If that will work, it will be quite a big thing. Huh?
Yeah.
We have to see. I'm not sure that playing live together next to each other it is different thing.
Yes, but maybe it's also to do with that we are, as human beings, we don't really like change. So what happened was interesting with the whole pandemic was that it was a revolution in the Zoom world, so that the digitalization, it happened overnight. It would have taken 10 years to do that, in the normal world. So meaning that you could have meetings, and we could actually achieve something that wouldn't be possible.
Actually, it was possible. We didn't know.
No. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the arts world with technology in the future. I mean, I really, of course, I'm 53 years old. I like to do things the way that I have always been doing. I even stick to an instrument that is made in 1997.
My trumpet is made in 1964.
4 years before I was born then.
It's a quite nice instrument, actually. I've been experimenting a lot with them, with instruments, but I always use that one.
The reason why I touched upon this was because it's related to the recordings that we did. When we had a online recording session, and I think that was so good. Yeah. So it was a new experience for me, and what came out of that was efficiency and good music and green. It was very green. I didn't travel to Frankfurt in order to produce the recording.
You were on Zoom with us, actually.
Yes.
And we were discussing, let's do now 3 minutes of that and that.
Yes.
And the names of the short pieces are quite interesting. Small ranges,
yes,
tiny activities.
Yes, I made these titles for you, and to be as ambiguous as possible, so that a small range for Sava. That was one of the titles, and another one was tiny activities, or
we have lights and
dark textures, or
intonation,
light conditions. These titles like this that immediately, if you say light conditions and let's go into recording, you know what it's about. It's not about the sub or the mid range. It's about the high range. So to form something collectively in the high range is something that you would start with. So you start collectively. And for me it was just a fantastic way of composing together, because that is actually what is happening.
Live composition.
It's a live composition, actually.
It's not really improvisation, actually. It's not.
Well, I think that it's you have to decide in the moment what you are going to do, but you are listening to the others and you are reacting yourself. So it's about decision making in a very short time, which is it's like composing in real time.
Yeah, they quite close, the improvisation and live composition.
Yes, of course. For me, there's no division between these things.
It's not that, yeah. Actually, yes, it is a live composition.
Yeah. I mean, I also, when I work in the studio creating all these different albums, I some of these albums I work very slowly. You know, I create different blocks of things, and I assemble them into compositions, which is more like a normal way of composing in my world.
Yeah.
But to use the experience from composing in the moment, which is improvisation, it's so important for me to do that. I know that I could spend 3 years working on an album to create that album, together with, let's say, Arve Hendrickson or someone else, with John Hassel, for instance, also a bit like that. But to be able to do it in the Manfred Eicher way, you know, to meet up, like we did with the Tigran Hamasyan recording. Everything was well prepared, a good studio, good engineer, proper microphones, good musicians. What possibly can go wrong? And then to be able to create music there and then in the moment. You showed me with the recordings that we did on Zoom. You know, you were based, like we mentioned earlier, when you were based in Frankfurt and I was in Kristiansand, that you could do the same. I think this is, for me, that's just, it tells me that everyone actually, if you're a good musician and you are able to do it, doesn't really matter what tradition you come from. It's just to feel safe, and that you feel that what you can bring to the table is strong enough, that you trust that.
Very nice. It's just about freedom.
It's about freedom, yes, and of course it's about freedom and preciseness. To be precise.
Exactly. I don't know how much time we have. We have to go to sound check very soon.
Let's go.
Maybe we should. You see, people are already coming in the garderobe.
Thank you for inviting me to your first podcast, Sava.
Oh, I'm very happy that it was exactly with you. You made it very easy for me. I didn't have to speak much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That was Nebenstimmen, a podcast by Ensemble Modern.